management has helped bring red grouse back to Snowdonia. Gareth is also part of a small shooting syndicate, and as you can imagine, he passionately believes in eating absolutely everything that's shot. Refreshingly direct about shooting and pest control, Gareth refuses to shy away from uncomfortable truths about food production and countryside traditions. So please welcome the Welsh hill farming legend, Gareth Wyn Jones. What do you go?
Hell of an intro, that, wasn't it?
Well, there's a lot to say, and it's very nice to meet you somewhere we can sit down, because I think the last time we met was in Westminster during the protests against the family farm tax, and It was quite a busy day.
Yeah,
but
lots to be said.
And you were very much in your element. But Gareth, this session is officially about using air guns in an agricultural setting, which largely means for pest control. And the reason we've decided to talk about this is that you've spoken quite recently about how you had, I think the phrase was a sort of midlife crisis, and became obsessed with your Webley Scott Eagle, which made you sort of rediscover air guns after years away. Why have they become an essential tool for you on your farm, rather than just a hobby?
Well, I'd really forgotten how much fun it was to have an air gun, to be honest with you. And life's busy, always doing something. And when it came back into my life, it was like a bit of a midlife crisis. It was an enjoyment where I used to go as a boy, just walking around the fields, you know, shooting whatever was moving, really, but I shouldn't say that. But we would shoot rabbits, we would shoot squirrels, and we would shoot rats. And it just took me back to my childhood, and I began to really then appreciate the importance of having that, you know, instead of putting traps down. And my mother and my wife had been worried. We've got an older Jack Russell who would be able to catch rats when he was a little bit younger. But now he's gone a bit like me, fat and older and slower, so he's not able to catch the rats as he used to. So when we were putting poison down, we were worried sometimes that he might catch one of them, you know, that had been heavily poisoned and could get into trouble. So it was a great way then to sit in the shed in the evening, put some bait out, and just take a couple of rats out or a couple of squirrels out and just really enjoy that time in the shed without disturbing anything.
From a technical point of view, were you doing that at dusk, or were you using thermals? What was your... How did it work?
Doing it at dusk.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't got a thermal yet. We are looking today. We're going to walk around. So if there's anybody out there that wants to sponsor a nice thermal, we've got a few followers on our social media. But it was just spending time, you know, because we knew there was rats in there. I'd put some bait out. I'd sit in the cow shed. There'd be sheep there. There'd be cows there. And I'd sit behind a bale. And I'd blast 5 or 6.
Wow.
And, you know, it was a great way of getting rid of them rats. Cows, all the sheep weren't disturbed. You know, there's a good little silencer on it, good scope on it, and it's quite satisfying to be able to shoot things.
Could I also ask what you used as bait? I'm always trying to find something that's going to tempt squirrels or rabbits, and I sort of oscillate between peanuts and peanut butter and that kind of stuff.
I can't afford peanuts and peanut butter. I'm a very poor hill farmer. I just use a little bit of grain.
Right.
That's what I was putting out there.
In a sort of tray?
Yeah, just put it in a lump, and sometimes bread. And you know, what I tend to do is bait it for a couple of days, and then not shoot it, and then put it there, put it in a different shed, and then go back, because, you know, rats can multiply very, very quickly.
Yes, and they're creatures of habit, so if you create, I guess, a kind of feeding pattern.
Yeah. I know the times when they'll be coming as well.
Yeah. And I think you sort of touched on this in your first answer, but as a result of your airgun midlife crisis...
you keep going back to this midlife crisis.
You've managed to stop using poison on your farm.
Yeah.
And have been able to switch to sort of airgun-only pest control. Now, that's obviously quite a bold move.
Yeah.
You're putting a lot of responsibility on yourself to shoot all the vermin that needs shooting.
Well, I do get help.
Right. Yes, we'll come to that actually. But could you walk us through what changed your mind and how effective it's been in practice?
Well, legislation again. You know, they're changing. There's a lot more problems to buy rat bait now. You know, I suppose they're trying to protect other things, but it was a big part of what we used to do. We'd put it down every 3 to 4 weeks. We'd have certain areas, and you know, we would see the dead rats. So yeah, by moving away from that has been a bit of a challenge, and you know, sometimes you will maybe have to go back to using poisons, but not quite yet. At this moment, we're able to control them, and rats come in, you know, seasonally as well. As the winter comes in, our straw comes in, you know, the hay, the sheds, the feed, so they come in at the same time as well. So, you know, keeping an eye and watching for the signs of rats, holes in your bags, or they're chewing on, you know, straw bale string, which can be a real pain when you go to pick a big bale up, and that's been chewed by rats. Well, there's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of blue air around. So, you know, controlling them, and that's where I've been fortunate, you know, where we live is a village, and I get some help as well.
And I guess it's not just your Jack Russell who's helped by less poison being used. I mean, it will have an effect on all the lives, all the wildlife around the farm.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be nasty stuff if it gets into the food chain. Owls, birds of prey, things that eat a lot of mice can be 100%. Affected. Have you noticed any?
I haven't noticed any difference, to be honest, but we weren't, you know, predominantly using a lot of bait. We'd only use it at certain times, and I would make sure if something, you know, was baited down, I'd go and pick up the dead bodies and I'd dispose of them. That's important as well, you know, as a farmer, as a country person. I think when we put these things out there, we have to make sure that we protect things after as well.
Yes, and anything that makes farming greener makes it, you know, easier to, I suppose.
And keeps the tree huggers happy.
It keeps the tree huggers happy, and that's very important. And you've talked a bit about air guns being a sort of godsend for, I think your phrase was a godsend for livestock farmers, because you can control pests without spooking ewes and heifers, even when they're pregnant. For any farmers in the audience who might still be reaching for shotguns or poisons, what specific situations do you think make air guns a better choice?
Well, me walking into a shed with my over and under and blasting a couple of rats, and the cows are like, and the sheep are like, so, and my sheepdogs as well would be like, so, you know, the noise, and I think when you walk around here today, you can see how many choices we've got of air guns, and how many companies are doing it, and there is something for everyone, and you don't have to spend a fortune. You know, there's cheap, and there's things, you know, these air guns, I can leave it in the back of my Land Rover and I can pick it up and it's there, you know, it's with me quite a lot of the time, and I can use it all the time, and I feel that's pretty useful for me. Instead, you know, you've got a lock cabinet where my shotgun is. If I've got a problem, I'd have to go and get that out of but the gun is with me nearly all the time in the pickup or on the quad.
Yeah, and I mean, there's clearly a balance, I guess, between accepting wildlife on the farm and knowing when populations kind of reach the stage of being out of control.
Yeah, there's wildlife and vermin.
Yes. Well,
I think we've got to get this balance, you know, and I think sometimes we need to be sharing this with the general public as well. Overpopulation of some creatures can cause massive problems, and some of them can be wildlife, some of them can be vermin, but we have to put that across as well to the general public so they understand.
And how do you tell when it's time to intervene? I mean, there's an old saying, he was probably spinning a line, but a pest control man once said to me, if you see evidence of rats, you've got rats, and if you see a rat, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
Is that how you you work on a similar basis?
I tend to try and control them all the time. I tend to keep an eye out, see what's happening, you know, and I'm walking around the yard and I'll see, oh, there's some rat poo there.
Yeah.
You know, or chickens, poultry, they attract them as well.
Yes.
So, you know, I keep an eye on the chicken shed, especially when we're bringing feed in at certain times of the year to feed the sheep, or, you know, big bags, dumpy bags of corn, and, you know, you can see there's been gnawing at that. We got a big log store as well. That seems to be a hot spot for them to breed as well. Don't know why. Straw, you know, you can see. Yeah, I don't know. It's an area in the shed where I store my wood in like big IPC where they get dried, and they seem to breed in there. So there's like a little run. It's like the M1, I call it. So I'm there getting them on the run every now and again, see how good my eye is.
From a technical point of view, could I ask how far away you position yourself from your bait or from where you think you're going to be shooting?
As close as I can at my age now. No, I do. It depends, you know. I think some of the older, bigger rats are a lot more cunning, clever. Yes. So when you've got the younger ones coming out, the smaller ones, you know, bam, bam, they'll come out and you'll get a few of them. But then the older, more cunning ones, sometimes you've got to be a little bit more patient and, you know, watch and
sort of 10, 20 yards is the kind of...
Yeah, well, we're shooting them at further than that as well.
Right.
These airguns today are pretty powerful and pretty...
Yes, I don't doubt the airgun. It's the person operating it that can be the problem sometimes.
Yeah, blame the man behind it.
And how much do you need to kind of camouflage yourself with rats, or is it just a case of sitting still?
Camouflage, I'm usually covered in cow poo, and so they don't really see me or smell me, to be honest. So I put a bale, or I'll sit sometimes behind the tractor's seat, and then the door's open. That's a good position because the tractor's always parked in the same position. So the door's open, so I can shoot them out of the tractor door, and I'm in a comfortable place.
That's a nice,
especially at my age.
Yes.
It's good to be able to sit down on the job.
A nice seat.
Yeah.
And we've spoken a little bit about help. So you have a friend, I think his name's Richard.
Yeah.
Who's an occasional appearances on your shows.
Yeah.
And he's been shooting pests on the farm since he was about 15.
Yeah.
Following in his father's footsteps.
Yeah.
For farmers in the audience who might think they need some help with pest control but don't necessarily have the time to do it themselves, what advice would you give about finding someone reliable? And what should those people be doing to show you that they're trustworthy?
You definitely need somebody reliable, honest, you know, because we've got a lot of kit around the yard, and I'll leave it spanners and tools. You know, you want somebody you can trust to come to your farm, and you can leave there, and they can come at any time. So Richard's got night vision, so he's got thermal, so he'll come up and he'll sit in the shed at night, and, you know, we have always trusted him. You know, nothing ever goes missing. So, you know, if I was a farmer, I'd want to really get to know the person that was coming into my yard and, you know, sitting there and controlling things. So get to know the person, find out what their background is, why they want to do it, how keen they want to do. You know, you don't want somebody just come in once and that's it. You know, we've had most probably about 80, 90 years of that same family coming up and, you know, helping us with pest control.
And I suppose conversely for airgun enthusiasts in the audience, if they want somewhere to go and practice a bit of pest control, I mean, I guess the best advice is just, you know, knock on the door of a farmer, introduce yourself, behave yourself, and try and get to know him, and you know, just ask nicely.
100%. And do you know what? It's nice to see a lot of young faces here today as well, and that's important that we, you know, get them involved into the shooting fraternity. You know, we start with an airgun, and they're going to a 12 bore, into a rifle. You know, these people are so important for food production. We forget it. You know, people don't understand the importance of having these guns on our farms to make sure we have food security, you know, protecting our animals, our livestock, and as well, definitely our crops, you know, from the birds. And this is a big part of what we do. And this is why it's important that we have people from outside the agricultural sector that come in to help with pest control.
Sure. I think I now want to talk a little bit about your campaigning work, Gareth. That's how I first met you, and that's how I'm sure a lot of people will have first come across you. You're obviously a vociferous and energetic campaigner on all sorts of issues. Most recently, and probably to a degree successfully, of course, with the family farm tax.
Yeah.
With your shooting hat on, what do you see as the big challenges that are currently facing the industry and shooting sports?
Well, it's the changing of these licenses now, isn't it? You know, shotgun licensing and looking at that going on to the same kind of legislations as they got with rifles. It makes no sense. You know, they seem to move the goalpost as they want. They don't want us having guns, in my opinion, a lot of these politicians, but it's so important that we protect our way of life. You know, we haven't got what the Americans have got. We haven't got the right to bear arms. We've got a great licensing system that works really well. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but I think it works really well compared with other countries, and we need to protect it, and we need these big organisations, you know, like the Countryside Alliance, putting these messages out there. So by helping, you know, the average shooter go out and sign these forms, protect our way of life.
You're talking about the petitions, and
the petitions.
I think I need to check, but I think it is possible to sign the petition here today, and I'd urge anyone who hasn't, find the Basque stand and do it. The other thing I'd say, as a journalist who occasionally covers Westminster, the firearms license, the licensing changes that are being proposed, it's being described as a consultation. In my experience, when governments start talking about consultations, they've unfortunately often made their minds up already. And it's not really a time for debate, it's a time to hit back hard. And
it's imperative that everybody gets off their backsides and fills in, sends in that petition, gives them the email. You know, it is imperative. Because if we don't do it, if we're lazy and we think that it's not going to happen, it is going to happen. And they will take another piece of our rights away from us. It's really, really important that we fight now and make sure we get the message out there that, you know, firearms and shotguns and air rifles are imperative for us as a farming industry, and for the people that go out, you know, to do this as a sport and to enjoy themselves, and to hunt, and to bring food back to the family. All these things are very important for us to protect going forward.
And I think also, actually, you know, on the subject of air guns, I think I'm right in saying that in Scotland, air guns are now licensed. You can't just go and buy one. You can't. I don't know what the rules are about storage, but it may not even be possible. You know, maybe you have to get a gun cabinet for them and all that kind of stuff. There are no guarantees in this that where Scotland's government's gone, the rest of the UK's government might follow. And I think that's it is really important that the industry's voice is heard. The other thing, I mean, we're sort of coming slightly towards the end of our time, and I'm sure there may be some questions in the audience. If anything anyone wants to ask Gareth, please do. Before we get there, I just wanted to talk about the show today. It's not your first time here.
No.
I think you've come a few times over the years. What keeps you coming back?
I just love it. You know, it's the people that I surround myself with every day, you know, the countryside people in my beliefs. And it's great to see some of the new innovation, some of the new guns, and just have a bit of a nose. And it's going to save me a fortune because I don't have to take the wife out on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, but your credit card might get a little bit of a battering if you go to the wrong stands, I think.
I'm going to enjoy myself today, so I'm not going to be worried about the credit card. I'd be more worried about the credit card in my wife's hands.
So on that note, does anyone have a question for Gareth here we go.
Hi Gareth. As a part-time pest controller on farms, I've got a few permissions. One of my biggest challenges is some of the farmers prefer me to take carcasses away from rats, etc. Rabbits not an issue, you can eat. Rats you won't eat. Squirrels I take to a bird of prey centre. What do you do with likes of rats or foxes, carcasses? What do you recommend pest controllers do with those?
Pest control with squirrels, you said?
No, rats and foxes.
Oh yeah. Well, look, we've always had the guy that comes to do the pest control for our foxes for years and years. Maldwyn Fox, we call him. You know, he's the best there is. So we've got people to do their jobs. And again, you know, with permissions, I think people should approach farmers and ask for that permission. And some farmers are protective of that land, if you understand what I mean, which is fair enough, that they've got the person coming there to do that job. And I think that's important. But, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think if you go onto farms, I think it's great that you're controlling rats, squirrels, rabbits, and that's what it's about. It's a balance, and getting that right, and getting the right people in the right places. And maybe we should do something on the social media platforms of telling people how to do this, how to introduce themselves, and how to be more open with the conversation.
Do we have any other hot questions for Gareth? Well, in fact, I've just been told it is actually time anyway. So, Gareth, thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
I hope he's educated everyone a little bit about air gunning and perhaps entertained them as well. He'll be around here all day. If you see him, pat him on the back. Don't buy him a drink. He's got to probably drive home.
No, I've got a driver.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gareth Wyn Jones.
Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.